Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Empowered by VictroS podcast. My name is Stacy Orsborn, your fairly frequent host on here. But today we're going to mix things up and do things a little bit different. I have not necessarily told my story, my background, how VictroS started, and really just like everything that I have been super passionate about in regards to women's fitness. I think you've heard it sprinkled in on previous episodes, but today you're going to get the opportunity to maybe hear more of my story or more of my history, my background, who I am. To be honest, I was not in charge of actually scheduling this podcast episode. I was told that my father is going to be joining me on today's episode and interviewing me. They wanted to find somebody that knew my background, that was familiar with public speaking, that would maybe hold me accountable, keep me to the fire a little bit more. So welcome. My dad is a minister in Houston, Texas, of the United Church of Christ Church, down one of the churches down there. And I'm not gonna lie, like I can plug I've met and talked with a lot of interesting and amazing people over the course of what I do and on this podcast and just everywhere. But my dad is probably single-handedly probably one of the most influential people in my life, from the way that I think, the way I show up, and the way that I see the world, to be honest. So it is an honor to have him on today. I hope he's nice to me, at least as nice as he can be. But his name is Tony Minear, and thank you, Dad, for being here.
Well, thank you. It's yeah, let's hold you to the fire. Let's see how much new information we can get out there so that people can get to know the young, well, I was going to call you young, not anymore.
Hey, you can still call me Dad.
One of the things for your listeners to understand is that at a young age, I never ever would have thought my oldest daughter was going to end up in the area of fitness and in particular women's fitness. That was not in any way that I saw. And so as this began to evolve, it was it was fun. It was fun to actually watch your interest in. And I think one of the things that it was easy for me to watch because it happened over a period of not only months but years. How did it, where was the initial stimulant that got the stimulus that got all of this going for you as far as women's health? Because you weren't overly excited about that. Let's be honest.
No, no, I think that it's been a snowball process that got me to like where I landed in
But
regards to the passion.
what got it rolling?
I think I've always said on any other podcast or discussion and talking in that regard was definitely getting pregnant with Beckham, but at the same time, and birthing Beckham. But at the same time, I think that it was also all the culmination of the experiences that I've had in regards to not only my health, my mother's health, like my other women that in my life that I've seen struggle with things or experience things. And it's just like that you don't really realize the impact that that has on you until you start to like experience something yourself on like a grander scale or a more significant scale. I know, growing up in the environment that I grew up in, like in regards to school, like there were certain sports, even in PE or activities in PE, that I wasn't allowed to participate in as a girl. There was, certain sports that weren't even offered for girls within our space. So I think that there was all of these things kind of compounding. I played sports in high school, but I think Rick would laugh now in regards to what that looks like now. But
Or what it
yeah,
looked
I
like
mean,
then?
yes, or what it looks like then. Dad, calm me out. No, I think it's just it was a culmination of things and experiences over the years, but really what like tipped it over was becoming pregnant with Beckham, my third son, and realizing I felt like I was just kind of like thrown into a creek and I wanted to do things differently. I didn't really know why I wanted to do things differently that pregnancy, beyond the fact that like my previous pregnancies were and deliveries were something that I felt very out of control of. And I think I was seeking to be more actively involved in my care and my experience. And um, for whatever reason, like I really just wanted to try to give birth naturally. And I knew that that would require education on my part, that would require intentional movements. Luckily at the time I had already started exercising, which again, like happened during a significant change in my life, like while I was going through my divorce. But um, I was familiar enough with exercise at the time to know the impact that it was having on me personally. Not necessarily in regards to women specific, but just as a person, I could feel myself changing and feeling myself getting better. And then when I, you know, developed my birth plan and created my ideal birth plan, I should say, in regards to like giving birth to Beckham, it was just like one part that I realized like that women weren't supported in, that exercise component of not being able to really move intentionally or feel empowered during pregnancy within the exercise space. And then my birth experience with him was not necessarily what I wanted. There was a lot of things that didn't happen the way that I wanted them to, but I have said before, and I believe that birth gives you what you need, not always what you want. And it was the perfect experience of what I needed personally. And it changed my life. I think it changed who I am on like a cellular level, to be honest, to know what I was capable of in a way that like I had never been tested like that before. I've been through a lot mentally, emotionally, physically in my life, but like there is nothing like that experience, where so many of those three different aspects are coming into play all at once. And so that's what kickstarted it. And I wanted every woman to have an experience where they could feel what that feels like, whether it was through birth or through, exercise or through strength training or through, doing hard things together or just whatever it may be. Like every woman deserves to know her power. I think when you know your power, physically it has the ability to change a lot of other things in your life. So like that physical gateway was a big important experience for me.
Okay, so when you began exercising, I remember the first time I heard you were going to do CrossFit, and it was like, wow, that's. And then I remember the first time I actually got to watch you compete and do CrossFit. And you talked about CrossFit kind of opening the door, you get pregnant, you come up with a birth plan. Why you talked about a birth plan, but specifically, what was it that you did and that other women you have worked with do, moving from just overall exercise to exercising specifically to get ready to prepare birth, which, if I remember correctly, you said is one of the greatest athletic moments in a woman's life.
I did not quote that, but I have said that. Yes, that is not my quote. I can't take credit for that quote. So yeah, what I was doing was actually like aligned with that quote. It's from BirthFit. It's a national organization here in the U.S. It has roots in CrossFit, so that's how I found it. And they were writing programming intentionally for women, pregnant women, that was very intentional to the stage of pregnancy. So meaning like first trimester programming looked better, different than second trimester, not semester, trimester, and then third trimester, throughout your pregnancy. So
So
it was very,
graduation.
yeah. And also like your center of mass changing like throughout
Mhm.
pregnancy, right? Like your center of mass is usually like right under, midline of your body by your belly button. Whereas as you get pregnant, like that external weight starts to load you forward. So your center of mass and gravity just starts to shift
Surprise,
naturally. So
surprise.
like, right. So learning how to like balance your posterior chain or your glutes and your hamstrings and your low back. Let me preface that with like I had no idea necessarily what any of that meant at the time. Like I just knew I've always been a good mover beyond obviously like sports being not the greatest thing, but like I have learned how to move very naturally and very quickly. I'm pretty in tune with my body. So like I was able to take that programming and really intentionally follow it and implement it in a way that I felt like I was really training for labor and delivery. They followed a lot of every minute on the minute or every 2 minutes, where it's like you work really hard and then you rest for X amount of time, which is very similar to the stimulus of labor. And just training your mindset for that too, like learning that hard stimulus coming in and then that being able to rest, and that hard stimulus coming in and then being able to rest. So like I did a lot of what I would consider like birth training ahead of time, just in an exercising way, as on top of the intentional movements that were made to fit my physiology or my ever-changing physiology. So that was like what makes them unique. And I've just taken that learning and that education and my lived experience with coaching prenatal women and then created our own within Victress.
So again, going back to this idea, you kind of hinted at your why it is that you decided to take your experience and share it with others. And if I remember correctly, you hinted at, I had this experience, I think I can benefit and help other women. Okay, so really, here's my question for you. Why? You could have done so many other things in your life with your career, your intelligence, everything. Why? Why focus the training you did, everything? Why? What's the real why underneath all of that for women's fitness, and in particular, women initially in giving and preparing to give birth and then recovering afterwards? Why the why?
Um, that's a good question. I would say at the root of all of it is the desire for women to know their internal strength, like their internal capabilities, like deep seated, God created experience like birth is so profound and so deep in our DNA and in who we are and how we, um, you know, procreate moving forward. And I think that that the physical changes that happen through pregnancy, through exercise, through like following a strength training program, through like doing something physically hard, translates into everywhere else in your life. Like I use the analogy sometimes of like, you know, we can open our own pickle jars. Like we can, you know, put the suitcase in the overhead bin by ourselves. We can, you know, whatever it is, like load our groceries, carry our groceries, like whatever it is, like we can do those things when you know you can physically do those things consistently. Um, when you know in the gym that you can deadlift 250 pounds, it just changes the way that you see your capabilities outside of that. And I
Mm.
think it translates so deeply for women, because we're told so often that we are weak or fragile, or especially in stages of life like that, like when, you know, we're seen as like these potentially like broken individuals or ill or sick individuals, and where we are kind of taking back that power. I would say that is probably like my biggest why, is because it changes you when you learn your own physical capabilities. It changes who you are and how you show up in the world.
So it sounds like the physical for you, if you can work with women, help train them, help them become not only in better shape, but also trained for a specific purpose, i.e., giving birth and then recovering from that. That's kind of like, it sounds like a wedge. And once you do that, then that it almost empowers them into other areas of their life that they can begin to develop and grow in. So
Yeah.
as you've watched women, not only in the physical aspect, but also these others, the psychological, the emotional and such. As you watch this, what have you found in the years that you've been doing this to be one of your, for you, the greatest reward? And then number two, the greatest disappointment. Your greatest reward and your greatest disappointment. And it doesn't have to be you personally. It can be also Victress itself, but it also could be just women's fitness in general. You get to choose those areas. Greatest reward, greatest disappointment?
Uh, I would say I already know my greatest disappointment out of the gate. Women's health still being so under researched and under resourced, just in general. Women's fitness, women's mental health, women's, you know, gynecological health, like hormonal health, like across the spectrum. It's just, it's getting better and it is getting more pronounced. And the world, I make a joke like millennials are really loud and we're not accepting the status quo anymore. But yeah, the lack of quality good research on women who are hormonally cycling, meaning they're not on birth control, they're not in one phase of their cycle only, they're not in postmenopause, like they are actually hormonally cycling, and we're studying them throughout their hormonal cycle in all areas of women's health and science in general.
But
So like,
so just real quick, in some ways, what you're saying is that you go to a regular gym, I've never heard anyone at a gym talk to a woman and say, well, where are you on your hormonal cycle right now? And so that's some of the disappointment you're seeing, is that there's so many influences in a woman's life, not only externally, but internally. And you're saying we're not looking at it. Is that correct?
yeah, I mean, I think it's like I said, I think it's starting, and the world is getting louder. But 7 years ago, no, that was not something that was discussed. And it has since started to change. I feel like we've always said like Victress has been kind of ahead of the curve here for a while, so it's good. It's just, yeah, I mean, there is a lack of research. I mean, even in regards to certain, I mean, you could talk about medications, you can talk about mental health, you can talk about stress responses. Like there's just so many other things that affect women differently, and that haven't been researched to the level that we deserve in regards to hormonal fluctuations, right? Like men fluctuate throughout a 24-hour period, women fluctuate on a like 28-day on average cycle. So we're talking about significant changes within a woman's body that have effects on everything
Mm.
that we do, not only that we do in our lives, the way we think, the way we can perform, our productivity, our emotional state, our even to the way that our body like digests and recovers, and the way that we respond to stimulus. Like it all changes throughout the month. And you know I get it, like from a science perspective, you want controllables, you want things that are like black and white, and like this worked, this didn't work, and control groups, right? But women are not good control groups because it's always changing. So it makes sense as to why we've been like maybe a little bit more minimized in our research up to more recent years. But research takes time. There's people out there doing studies that we still don't know the results of. So I
Mm.
can't say that it's not happening. It's just at that point, especially back then, like it was for sure a very big disappointment, and still feels very disappointing when for example, women come to me in the years of like perimenopause right now. Like menopause is having its moment, I say right now, because everybody's starting to talk about it, because guess what? Millennials are entering menopause. So now we're not going to shut up about it. But the the implications and the way that it's affecting them, and like how much they're struggling with these perimenopause symptoms, and going to their doctors, and it's just getting dismissed, and it's feeling very defeating, and they're in tears, and they're frustrated because they're gaining weight, or they're feeling like mentally anxiety and depression and like all of these different things, and nobody is helping them navigate that journey. It's just it's normal, so
Okay.
welcome to the club type of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my biggest disappointment for sure.
And your biggest reward? You can be general, you can
Oh,
be specific.
my biggest reward, when I decided to quit the job I was working at the time, I just knew in my gut that I could do this, and that I could create something that really would make an impact on women. And at the time, it was very much just like a handful of women was enough for me. Like, it was very much like, I just want to, I want someone else to feel how I feel right now and
Mm.
feel, and I want someone else to like know this feeling and feel like they can show up better in their own lives. And I, I guess I knew then that I could do it and that I was the person that probably was supposed to do it for whatever reason. It really resonated with me. I have a unique ability to see movement. I have a unique ability to coach movement. I have a unique ability to empathize with people and feel their energies maybe before they even know what they're feeling. I have a unique ability to see see a broader picture, see the individual, and see how they connect to this bigger space and how the bigger space connects to the person. And I just, for whatever reason, I just knew. I knew that if I put my mind to it, I could do this. And to know that that has happened and that what felt like a calling to me had come to that, and it has moved forward in the way that I wanted it to and beyond, is just extremely, extremely rewarding because I mean, I am proud of a lot of things in my life. I've done amazing. I'm a good person. I've done amazing things, yes, and I would call myself a fairly decent mom. But like I know that my life and my knowledge has made a substantial impact on a lot of people, and that is rewarding.
So you mentioned that this has impacted you personally, and now it's impacting you personally in the influence and impact you're having on other people. There's a woman out there right now who's listening to this podcast, and it doesn't matter if she's pregnant, if she's perimenopause, wherever she is in this process. Why in the world should she go and join a gym? Why should she, let's say they're in Lincoln, Nebraska, we're up in Omaha, join a Victress or another gym? Why? Here's your opportunity to give that sales pitch. What difference can it make in a woman's life if they were willing to work with someone like you to go get in better physical shape?
I'm gonna ask a follow-up question. Do you want me to speak more to like the physical side or the mental, emotional, spiritual like side? Because I think
Yes,
both
yes,
both are important.
yes.
That means
Time all together. Bring it together
I'm
for
pretty
me.
sure I say that. I'm pretty sure if somebody asks me something I want a question to both, I say yes to. Okay. Um, so I'll start with physical, from a physiological, from a physical standpoint. Muscle mass is health. Going and putting on muscle mass as a woman is probably one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself in regards
Wait.
to
You're talking women getting really bulky, not being able to
no,
fit into their shirts anymore. Is that what we're talking about?
no, that was a setup question. No, I'm talking about having quality muscle tissue on your body. So there is a difference between size and quality. There's a size difference between quantity and quality. Quality muscle mass is what we're looking for. Does it have to carry a little bit of quantity? Yes, but it also is just the quality of the muscle fibers working consistently and being trained and put under stresses consistently have huge long-term beneficial effects or short-term beneficial effects on a woman's physiology, from the way that we metabolize our food, from our resting metabolism, from our bone health. We know a lot about osteoporosis in women as we age. From our ability to give birth, our ability to move, our ability to function, our ability. Women do a lot in a day. Not only in their jobs, but outside of their jobs, if they choose to have children and live that life. Like, we are constantly moving and grooving and like doing things and moving our bodies in different ways. And working out is one of the best ways, or strength training, I should say, is one of the best ways to really set yourself up for success, and live a quality life, at it much quantity as possible. And truly, like from what research is showing, like hormone regulation, blood sugar, you name it, like all of those different like physiological responses. But you can know all of those things, and you can know, like, I don't even like talking about losing weight, because losing weight as a woman is a very complicated process. It is not just simple as, always as simple as taking out calories and moving more. There are a lot of different factors that come into women, quote unquote, losing weight. And so I really just try to empower that woman to really set themselves up for a plan that creates muscle mass and starts to increase the muscle quality of the muscle on your body in a way that hopefully may translate into weight loss if that's the goal. But really just being able to physically perform life well,
Mm.
and also be able to feel like you have a little bit of control in your health.
So,
There are a lot of things physical, like healthcare, like we just talked about, that women aren't necessarily represented well in. We know that strength training and muscle mass is something that will help us and feel like we have a role in our healthcare in a contributing way.
so you mentioned doing physical movement well. How in the world does learning you acquire this quality muscle mass? You're not hulking out, but you look but you're able to physically move well. How does that kind of movement and moving well make the rest of your life when it comes to the psychological, the emotional, the spiritual? How does that help you do that better?
Um, I think that the connection between the physiological responses of not feeling well and our mental health are very connected.
Can you expand?
For example, like if our hormone regulation is off due to whatever reason, a lot of times that can present as anxiety or depression, or um, it just a whole bunch of different symptoms, physical and emotional symptoms that come from the hormone regulation being off, or things not functioning optimally. And so, putting on excess muscle, putting on, exercising in a strength training way, being intentional with the type of programming that you're doing that's helping support your hormone regulation, really has profound effects from that standpoint. So the physiological standpoint, or the physical standpoint, matching the emotional and mental standpoint. But then also, like, when, again, just going back to when you work out and you consistently show up for yourself, it's just a consistent commitment that you are making to yourself time and time again. You're proving to yourself your self-worth. You're proving to yourself your commitment to your self-betterment and your process. I hear a lot of times, we work with a lot of moms, and I have worked with a lot of moms over the years, and I hear a lot of times, like, my children are my why. I'm coming into the gym because of my children, or I want to live until XYZ to be active with my grandkids, or I want to live a quality life for my kids. Like, I want to make my kids proud of me is another one. Like, I want them to see me doing this, and for them to live a better life. And as much as whatever gets you in the door and gets you moving and gets you committed to that process, I love, and I'm going to be here for that, and I'm going to cheer for you along the way. But I'm also going to hold you accountable that at a certain point, you have to start showing up for you and no one else.
Mm.
You are showing up to your process and no one else. You're prioritizing feeding yourself and moving your body intentionally in a way that is for you and for you only. And I think that feels selfish on a lot of people's shoulders, or
Right.
women's shoulders. It feels scary. It feels like I'm talking blasphemy. But it's true. Like, whatever gets you in the door and gets you committed to your process, again, like, let's do it, let's use it. But at a certain point, something has to give, and you have to be able to like buy into the process for yourself. And I think that's organically does start to happen over time. But being able to talk about it is also like a huge component of that.
So you've made the connection between the physical and how by reshaping, reforming, that affects you emotionally, psychologically. But come on, let's be honest. When it comes to the spiritual, that's something you do either on a Sunday morning, a Saturday morning, if you're Jewish, if you're a Muslim, a different day of the week. Come on, spiritual, what in the world is any possible link between the physical and the spiritual? That's that's a hoop I want to see you jump through.
um Well, I mean, for me, faith is very individual. Faith, spirituality, religion, like I think they're all different versions of things that like a lot of people can identify with. And whether you believe that there was a big explosion and that's how we're existing right now, or you believe that God created every single one of us and we were divinely chosen and created and knows exactly where our life is going to lead us. Either way, we are incredible human beings. We are incredible. The way that our heart works with our brains, with the way that our central nervous system works with the skeletal system that works with the muscular system that works with the lymphatic system, like all of these different systems just work. They just work by like us having to do nothing. And that is amazing. That's incredible. That's a gift in so many ways because there are a lot of people on this earth that don't have that functionality naturally. But it is a gift to be able to live in this body and experience this life as it's happening to us. And when you are moving your body in a way that is celebrating that gift and honoring that gift in a way that feels like, oh, like I get to do this today.
Mm,
It's not I have to do this today. It's I am blessed in a way that God gave me this body and I get to take care of it. I inhabit this temple. You know, and again, from the other spectrum, if it you feel like it was just a coincidence or whatever it may be, it's still incredible. It's still absolutely incredible that this is you. You have a brain, you have thoughts, you have emotions. The way that we experience emotions and the way that emotions affect us physically, the way that movement can help us experience spectrums of emotions. We talk about like stored emotions in a woman's hips. Like if you hold certain positions in like a stretch position, you will like a lot of times like see a full blown like emotional reaction. That energy and that grief or that stress or whatever it may be is like hiding out in that space and it starts to be released. How many times do we talk about like tight jaws or tight shoulders? We're holding tension. We're holding our human experience in our bodies.
mm.
And movement allows us to process that and experience that differently. Um, if you let it, like you have to let it.
Yeah, I think that, wow, that's fascinating because as you were talking and listening, yeah, ancients have realized from early on that when it came to spirituality and however people experience God, that it brought about some kind of movement. We see it from anyone prostrating themselves. We see it from people standing up, kneeling down. Whenever we encounter or experience the divine, there is some kind of physical movement. And I love what you said about it being a release to be able to let that go. So there's another door that I want to open before our time comes to an end. And this one on the door itself, there's a little placard that says the future. So we're going to open that door up, and inside, my first question for you on that is, when it comes to the future, if you were to look inside this door, where do you hope to see Victress 10 years from now? As far now, I'm not talking specific details. The broader picture. What do you see and by extension, not only Victress, but women's fitness.
I think Victress is so multi-layered and it serves so many different demographics from a stage of life perspective that I hope 10 years from now that it is a necessary space for so many in so many different cities in so many different spaces. Um, and that it continues to be this empowering community building experience. I think that it can be a leader in so many different aspects of women's health transformation. It can be a catalyst for women to speak up not only inside themselves but also for each other and demand change and demand better representation from our healthcare providers all the way to our mental health professionals just across the gamut. So I hope that when we decided to go the route of opening up a lot of locations and whether it was through franchising or through the corporate owned model, like I had thrown out the number of 500 someday. Like I'd love to see 500 locations throughout the world. So yeah, 10 years, I don't know if we'd hit 500 in 10 years, but that would be pretty cool. And then from a women's fitness standpoint, I can't wait to like absorb the science and see what the research right now that's happening right now divulges in the future. I think that again, like women's mental health stuff is something near and dear to my heart, and I think that there's a lot of research lacking in that area, and I would love to see that continue to grow and see what we learn about that side of movement or movement support. And I mean, I don't see strength training going away as far as being like one of the best things for women in regards to exercise modalities, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that would change in 10 years. I don't know. I mean, that's the beauty of science is it's ever changing and ever adjusting and accommodating the changes in our species and the changes of our individuals. So, I mean, I guess I wouldn't hang my hat that strength training's going anywhere from what we know now, but who knows? I mean, 10 years ago, they weren't necessarily recommending strength training for health. It was definitely still like cardio and everything else. So,
Okay, so in that door, there you've looked at the side of Victress, women's fitness, but then if when you glance the other direction, you're going to see that there's another crystal ball there, and it says on the plaque on the bottom of it, it says Stacy. So, where do you envision? Again, you don't have to go into great details, but just the bigger picture, given the foundation that you've laid in helping start, grow, mature Victress. Where do you see Stacy 10 years from now?
it's a very good question. I'm just gonna go like very personally here. Like I see Stacy with a 26-year-old son, a 24-year-old son, a 17-year-old son, um, living out and true to myself.
You didn't tell us how old you were, though.
Well, I would only be 47, so it's not that old. Um, I would see myself just really embracing the benefits of and watching the rewards of all of my hard work within this space and my hard work in raising my children and truly the hard work within myself. I have done and continue to do a lot of hard work physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually on myself. And so I hope that in 10 years from now, I am sitting back and watching and participating in the reaping the rewards of all of the things that I have set out to do and that I continue to commit myself to doing. I hope that physically I'm still capable of doing all of those things as well. Like, I want to reap the benefits of all of my hard physical work and be able to carry muscle mass and navigate perimenopause well and experience that well. Um, and, again, mentally, like, I want to continue to heal myself, continue to grow myself, continue to learn. I don't believe in the word expert. I believe that we never know the threshold of what we can learn and what we can achieve mentally. And so just continuing to commit myself mentally to not only taking care of myself, but also learning and continuing to learn as much as possible in whatever I choose. I mean, women's health, fitness, mental health, just anything and everything. I think anything that I'm super passionate about. I mean, you can attest to this. I'm a learner. I used to just like research history for fun. Like, I like just learning. So I think I see 10 years from now still being that person. And then spiritually, like, more recently, I've really done a lot of healing work around my spirituality, from the way that I was raised, not necessarily by you, we're not blaming, um, but just the experiences that I had growing up, to learning how to connect to my beliefs again and find myself and find my center in that way, and believe that God and the universe and um, the the intuitive development of life is so unique for each individual, and how um, I can experience that on a deeper level by connecting with myself and the world around me, physically, mentally, learning better and more, but also being able to, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I want to be able to experience my life on a spiritual level deeper, whether that's through, you know, going to church or through meditation or through energy work or through a little bit of uh, horoscope stuff. Like, I've got it all. I think there's a lot there that I think is just multifaceted, and they all interconnect.
Very eclectic. So that woman
Yes.
that I mentioned earlier, as far as why she ought to come and look at Victress or another gym, that woman hopefully is still listening, and I want you to leave her with just two things. Number one, a book that you would encourage her to read that has somehow inspired you, shaped you. What book? And then, if she's not a reader, what movie? What movie? Those two.
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. I have a really dark and twisty taste in movies, so I don't know if that's a good answer. My sister's sitting to the left of me over here, so I'm getting feedback. Oh gosh, okay.
And if there's
Book.
not a book, you can give me an author. But if there's a book, either one, book or an author, that you would encourage them to take a look at.
Okay, well, if she's considering joining the gyms, anything by Dr. Stacy Sims.
Okay,
There's a Next Level and Roar. Both are women, essentially women's physiology, exercise science,
so
broken
that's
down. So,
STACY
why?
and Sims
SIMMS.
SIMMS. Okay, in that movie,
No, just one. Just
what
one M.
one M
SIMS.
SIMS in that movie.
Oh my goodness. Remember the Titans.
Oh, tell me why. One sentence. Make it short.
Attitude reflects leadership, Captain.
Ooh, nice quote. Well, Stacy, thank you very much for coming and being a part of your own show. We greatly appreciate you having taken the time to join us. We hope to have you back on another one of your podcasts.
Thanks, Dad. Seriously, thank you for doing this. You have been a
Sure.
great host, and I've enjoyed myself very much. Sorry for the
Anytime.
rambling.
Anytime.
All right, Dad. Thank you.